Okay, so I have hit the recording button. So again, today's webinar is on Microsoft Word's Table of Authorities feature. I am not going to be teaching you how to properly type an actual citation, but I will teach you how to properly mark your citations in the pleading and generate a table of authorities. And we will be doing this all natively in Word, not using a third-party program. So the document we're looking at right here, this is a master pleading. So this document has a table of contents generated and a table of authorities already generated. So the pleading we are going to be working in, we are going to get it to look like this. So I will go ahead and open up my pleading that we're going to work on today that does not have any of our citations marked. And I'll start by saying I highly recommend you wait till your document's ready for final before you start marking it for a table of authorities. And the reason is you get a lot of field codes inserted into your document when you start marking for a table of authorities. And if you start doing it in the beginning, in your document is going to go through, probably dozens of revisions. And if you start cutting and pasting and moving text, here you'll see that I have a table of authorities field code in here. If you're like most people who who works with your show hide turned off, you're not going to see this field code, right? So it's there, but if you hit your show hide and turn it off, you don't actually see it. So if you start cutting text and moving it around, there's a very good chance you may cut, your text here. So here's a citation. I'm going to cut it, and I'll just go to another page here, and I will paste it somewhere else. If I go back up to that previous page, and I'm going to turn my show hide back on, do you see how the field code is still living on that prior page? That's because I only cut the actual citation. I didn't have my show hide on, so I didn't see the field. So if you start trying to move things around and you've got field codes in here, it can be a mess. So I always say, wait till your document's ready for final. All revisions have been made. Then start marking your citations for a table of authorities. It's just a much cleaner way of marking and then generating your table of authorities. So again, my advice is wait till your document's ready for final. So I'm going to go back to my training. So your citations typically start in your memorandum of points and authorities, typically under your argument section. So for this training, I'm just going to immediately go to the argument section of my pleading. And I just kind of scan through my document visually until I find my first citation. And in this instance, I see a rule, Orange County Superior Court's Rule 222. So, and again, I recommend that you have your show hide on when you're marking for citations, and then later on you can turn them off. But for now, I'm going to have them on because I want to see my actual field codes. So I found my first field code. The first thing you need to do is select it. So I'm going to use my shortcut keys, and I'm going to actually Control-Shift-Right arrow, selects a word at a time. So I've got my citation selected. Now I need to bring up my Mark Citation dialog box. And there's two ways of doing this. There's a long way, and then there's a shortcut key. So the long way is if I come up here to the top to my References ribbon over here on the far right in my Table of Authorities group, I can click on Mark Citation, and that brings up my Mark Citation dialog box. The quicker way is it's a shortcut key, and it's Alt-Shift-I. Alt-Shift-I brings up your Mark Citation dialog box. And that shortcut key is mentioned in your actual handout that you can download. So I know, a lot of people know how to get to this part, to the Mark Citation dialog box, and maybe they say Mark and they start moving on. However, I want to take some time to explain what these fields are, what these boxes are in your Mark Citation dialog box. So the first one here, selected text. This is obviously a copy of the text I selected in the document. More importantly, I want you to think of this field as this is exactly how this citation is going to appear in my generated table of authorities, okay? So this selected text, this is exactly how it gets put into your table of authorities. Now I am going to purposely make some of the more commonly made mistakes that I've seen when people mark for a table of authorities. And probably the most popular mistake people make is right here is category. It's going to default to the last category you used when you marked a particular citation. So in this case, it's defaulting to cases, even though what I selected is a rule. So I'm going to make that mistake because we're going to show you how to fix that mistake later on. So again, most commonly made mistake, people forget to change the category, so I'm going to purposely make that mistake. Probably the least known thing about marking a citation is what this short citation field is for. And this is truly, and you can see up here in my sample document, that I have the long cite, Orange County Superior Court Rules, Rule 222. However, right after it, I have the short cite actually defined so that I know in my document how my short cite for this rule is going to be, and it's OCSC Rule 222. So if I actually match my short cite with how I defined the short cite, then I can click on Mark All, and it will mark all of my long cites as well as my short cite. So if I actually make my short citation to match how I have it defined, and now I can say Mark All, and it's going to mark all my short cites. If I had left this as the long cite, it wouldn't actually find my short cites and mark them. So I'm actually being very specific as to how I want my short cite. So I'm going to go ahead and say Mark All. And then I do not use this next citation. There are going to be occasions where it's not, especially if you've got a ton of different types of citations in your document where it could be different states. That I know that's going to be more for federal, but I have always preferred to scan through my document and find these citations on my own. So I'm going to actually click on this close. So again, when you mark a citation, it puts in this table of authorities field, right? So I had just marked that citation. So now here I've got another one, California Rules of Court, Rule 316. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to do Alt-Shift-I. I'm going to bring up my Mark Citation dialog box. So remember how I said what's in your selected text? This is exactly what's going to appear in your generated table of authorities. Well, I used to work for an attorney that in my generated table of authorities, he did not want anything abbreviated. So for this case, I can actually revise what is in the selected text field because I don't want any abbreviation. It's not going to change how it is in the document, in the text, but it is going to change how it appears in your table of authorities. So I'm going to delete the period, and I'm actually going to type out the word California Rules of Court. So here's my full cite, how it's going to appear in my generated table of authorities. This citation I will mark correctly. So from category, I'm going to go ahead and choose a rule. So I'll do this one correctly the whole way through. Now notice here, once again, I have my short cite defined, and I have it defined as CRC Rule 316. So down here in my short cite, I'm going to go ahead and match that. CRC Rule 316. So let's talk about what if you don't actually define your short cites like I have in my document here. So you don't know if it's going to be CRC or Cal Rules of Court CT period, right? Maybe you don't really know. it would be a safe bet for you if you actually just kept Rule 316, because no matter how the first part of it, whether it's CRC or Cal Rules of Court, CT period, you're probably always going to have Rule 316 in there. So you could get away with having Rule 316 as your short cite. But for this, I'm going to go ahead and put my CRC back in there because I know that's how it's defined. And now at this point, I can say mark all, and I'm going to hit escape to close out of my mark citation dialog box. I'm going to continue scanning down through my document. I see my next citation right here, and it's an actual statute. Code of Civil Procedure, sections 725 and 728. So I have it selected. I'm going to do my Alt-Shift-I, bring up my mark citation dialog box. And this sample is actually a perfect example of when you would want to revise the text in the selected text field. So this should actually really be Code of Civil Procedure with the word section, not section symbol. Again, I used to work for an attorney who did not want any abbreviations in here. So I would go ahead and type everything out. I would even type the word section, and I would section 725. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and choose the proper category of statutes. And then for my short cite, I have it defined right there, right? So I'm going to put in CCP. I'll get rid of one of the section symbols, and I'll leave it 725. So again, I've revised what's in my selected text. I've chosen the proper category, and I've put in a proper short cite. Now I can say mark all, and I'll go ahead and hit close. Well, I also need to reference section 728 in my generated table of authorities, right? So I'm going to select 728, Alt-Shift-I, bring up my mark citation dialog box. And again, what's in your selected text is exactly what's going to appear in your generated table of authorities. So I'm going to type, sorry, I got the wrong one thing. Code of Civil Procedure, section 728. I have statutes here, and I'm going to, just to show you a sample, I could simply leave this as 728 if I wanted to, and anywhere it found the number 728, it would mark it as a short cite. So for that, for just the sample, I'll leave it like that. And I'll go ahead and say mark all, and I'll hit close. So let's go find my next citation, which is right here. It's my first case. So in Ray Baker's Estate, 1963, 16 Cal, page 760. Now, when you're in your generated table of authorities, it's only necessary to reference the first page number, so I have not selected the second page number here. I'm going to bring up my mark citation dialog box, Alt-Shift-I, and I have my case in my selected text. Now, some of you, I have noticed that some of you prefer to have the reference of the year in the book appear on the line underneath the name of the case. So if your firm does your table of authorities that way, then right here where you want the information to appear on the next line, just hit the enter key. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. So in my generated table of authorities, the year of the decision and the book reference is going to appear on the line below. For this one, I will do it correctly. So I'm going to make it a case. And then with most cases, this obviously is an estate, but if it were a plaintiff versus defendant, most of the time, the name of the plaintiff is going to be your short cite, right? Looking at the line below here, I see what my short cite is in Ray Baker's Estate. So down in my short citation field, I'm going to delete the rest of the information. So my short cite matches how the short cite is throughout my document. And in this case, I'm going to say mark all. I'll go ahead and hit my escape key, close out my Mark Citation dialog box. Now notice that it didn't put a reference to the short cite right here, and that's because if a short cite is on the same page as a long cite, it's not going to mark it. Word knows that it's already marked once and it's not going to mark it twice on the same page. So here I have another statute, Civil Code, Section 1550, Alt-Shift-I. I'm going to go ahead and mark it. I'm going to, for this, I will leave it abbreviated because, again, I told you I'm going to purposely make some mistakes so I can show you how to fix them. So I'm going to keep this abbreviated, but I will go ahead and give it a proper category. And for a short cite for me, I don't have it defined, which probably tells me it's not really short-cited in my document later on. But what I could do, just to be safe, is keep my section symbol and then the section number 1550. So I can say mark all, and I'm going to hit escape to close the dialog box. Now I have a reference to Witkin right after this, Alt-Shift-I. Now for Witkin, the attorneys I used to work for, I only had to list categories of statutes, rules, and then the third one, I could lump everything else under other authority. So I believe Witkin is actually a treatise, but I was able to put Witkin and Wheel and Brown and all those other types of citations under other authorities. So that's the category I'm going to choose. With Witkin, with some of your other authorities, it's a little more difficult to identify a proper type of short cite because this section 2070 here could refer to a whole different book written by Witkin. So for these, I tend to keep my short cite the same as the long cite. And so I will go ahead and say mark all. And again, if you're the one typing this document, you could probably know how you're typing your short cites. And so if you remember exactly how they're typed, then for Witkin or Wheel and Brown, you could go ahead and type that in. All right, I'm scrolling through my document. I see my next case, Chavez versus Springfield Fire and Marine. I'm going to select it all, Alt-Shift-I. Now I'm going to intentionally forget to put a enter right here so that the year of the decision in the book comes on the line below it. Because again, I'll show you how to fix that. Now it looks like there's a break after the word marine and before the word insurance. It's not. It's just this is a smaller dialog box, so it's looking like there's a break right there, but there's not. But you would put your break before 1981. But again, for training, I'm going to keep it as is, and I'll show you how to fix that. So I am going to go ahead and say that this is a case. I'm going to identify the proper category, and then I see my short cite right here. See how it's just the plaintiff's name, Chavez? So for my short citation field, I'm going to delete everything other than Chavez, and I can go ahead and say mark all. And then I'm going to hit escape. I think I just have a few more in here. Davis versus Rolling Hills Motors. All right, and by the way, these are all made up, so I certainly hope nobody's writing these down and they're going to try to look these cases up. They are 100% made up. So, all right, Alt-Shift-I, bring up. Now this one I will do correctly 100%. So even though it looks like there's a break here before the year of the decision, again, it's only looking that way because of the size of the dialog box. I really do need to hit an enter there. So I went ahead and hit my return key right here. It didn't show it, but it actually put in a return there. I'm going to keep it as a case. And then my short cite is going to be Davis. So I'll delete everything other than Davis, and I will say mark all. And then I'll hit escape. By the way, so the citation we just marked, Davis versus Rolling Hills Motor Company, do you see this symbol right here, this arrow? That is called a line break, And when I hit enter in the Mark Citation dialog box before the year of the decision, it actually turns it into a line break in our field code. So that's what this symbol looks like. All right, and here, this is what a short cite looks like, how it marked a short cite. Here's another short cite, Chavez. So I've gone through my entire document. Obviously, I know your documents are much longer than this sample document, but I've marked all my citations. So now it's time for me to go and generate my table of authorities. So I'm going to go to the top, beginning of my document, and I'll scroll down to where I've already made a page where I'm going to insert my table of authorities. So I had previously typed the word table of authorities and then the word page over here on the right. Now it's important that before you generate your table of authorities, you know, I'm a proponent of working with your show hide on because I like to see all the formatting in my document, but you need to turn that off before you generate your table of authorities. And the reason is, let's come back down into my document. So as you can see, these field codes, when they're showing, they're taking up space in our document. So the way my document is paginating on screen right now is different from how it's going to paginate when it prints. So if I want to get the proper page numbers, you know, stating which page these citations are on, I need to turn my field codes off so that my document paginates the same way it's going to print. So a sample of that, see how this last sentence of this paragraph shows that it's on line 19 and it starts with the word particularity. So if I turn my show hide off, you see how really that that paragraph ends on line 18. So again, your document's going to paginate differently with your show hide on than it's going to paginate with the show hide off. So let's come back up to our table of authorities. I'm going to put my cursor exactly where I want to generate my table of authorities. I'm going to turn my show hide off. I'm going to come back up to my references ribbon here, and I'm going to go to Insert Table of Authorities over here on the far right. So I'm not going to change anything in this dialog box, but let me explain what's going on here. So print preview, that's obviously just previewing how it's going to print. This use PASM, by default, it is checked. And PASM is a Latin term, and I don't remember the exact definition or description of what PASM means. But basically, if you have a citation that appears on X number of pages, and I think it's 5 or 6 pages of your document, instead of it listing all 5 of those pages, instead of it saying page 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, instead of it listing all those pages, it's going to put the word PASM in there. Again, it's a Latin term. If your attorneys do not want that term PASM, then just uncheck it before you actually go to generate your table of authorities. And then see how right up here in the sample it's showing all of the page numbers. And again, if you check PASM, it puts in the word PASM. You definitely want to keep the original formatting. For tab leader, you wanted the period leaders, formats from template. Over here on the right where it's category, you definitely want all, and it's going to default to have it be all categories, but if you accidentally clicked on cases, then you're only going to generate the cases. So you want to make sure when you're going to generate your table of authorities that your category remains on all. So I haven't changed anything in this dialog box, so now I'm just going to go ahead and click on the OK button, and it will generate my table of authorities. Now, in looking at this, right away, I see some mistakes. And remember how I told you I was going to intentionally make some mistakes so I could show you how to fix these errors. So one mistake I see right here, if I start at the top, Chavez, I don't have that return, right? My year of the decision and the book reference is not appearing on the next line. Now, I know a lot of you just may come in here and try to fix it here. So if I put in that line return, that line break, shift enter, it will fix it temporarily, right? Because I just put a Band-Aid on it. I didn't fix the real issue. And if my table of authorities gets updated, which sometimes, you've got your Word set up so that fields update upon print. If that's the case, and I'm not going to print this, but I'm just going to select my table of authorities and I'm going to hit my F9 key, F9, because that updates your table. See how it went right back to the way it was. Because this is what your table of authorities is. It's a field code, right? So it's generating the way it's generating because of the way I marked it. So to properly fix this error, let's go find the actual field code. So I'm going to go and I'm going to find Chavez, right? Because the issue, let's bring this over here. The issue is with the Chavez site, and I will say find next. And here's my field code. So on the handout, I actually break down and explain what the field code is. So on page, I want to say it's 4. On page, sorry, I'm trying to find the handout here. Okay, I think it's on page 6. Well, on page 6 of the actual handout. So the field code, it starts with a little open bracket thing here, and then TA stands for Table of Authorities, right? That's what we marked it for. And then the \L, that means long cite. Anything that's in quotes after the \L, this is exactly what was in the selected text field when I went to mark the citation, which more importantly means this is exactly the text that's going to appear in my generated table of authorities. So I can edit this field code, right? So with the field code, the issue with this one was it didn't have that, return. The year of the decision did not appear on the line underneath the name of the case. So within the actual field code, I'm going to put in that line break. So right before 1981, I'm going to hit Shift Enter. So within the field code, I put in that line break. It's not within the document, but just within this field code. Now, if I come back up to my generated table of authorities, I'll turn my show height off. I'm going to select it again, and I'm going to hit my F9 key, and it's going to update my table of authorities. There you go. See how I've now properly fixed it because I fixed the actual field code. So there's a couple others here. Orange County Superior Court. I've got a rule listed under my case, and that was the first citation I marked, and I intentionally gave it the incorrect citation. Now, category. So I do know some people try to do a cut and paste it under the rules, but remember, if this gets updated, it's going to move right back under case because I'm simply putting a Band-Aid on it. I'm not fixing the issue. So I'm going to undo that. Let's go find the issue. Let's go find the field code for Orange County Superior Rule 222. So I'm going to do a find, and we'll look for 222. And here's the field code right here. So I already explained anything after the \L, this is your long cite, or this is what appeared in the selected text area of the Mark Citation dialog box, which means this is exactly what's going to appear in my generated table of authorities. The \S means short cite. Anything after that in quotes, this is the short cite. Remember, for when I marked for a table of authorities, I did modify the short cite, so that's where that's coming from. The \C means category, and the default categories in Word, and again, this is on page 6 of your handout as well. Category 1 is a case, Category 2 is a statute, Category 3 is an other authority, and Category 4 is a rule. Well, I have a rule listed as a Category 1, so it should be a Category 4. So all I need to do is type in 4 and delete the 1. Seriously, that's how easy it is to fix that mistake. So I'm going to go up, back up to my table of authorities. I'll turn my show hide off. Let's update this now, F9. See how it moved that out of my cases and put it back under rules. All right, so I think I have one more error here, and that's my Code of Civil Procedure. It's still abbreviated. Again, the attorneys I worked for, they didn't like any abbreviations in my generated table of authorities. So I'm going to go find 1550, and I'm going to fix the error. So again, anything following the \L in quotes, this is what was in my selected text area, which means this is what's going to be listed in my generated table of authority. So I can fix it right here. Take my civil code, and I'm going to type the word section. All right, now I can go home, go back to my table of authorities, turn my show hide off, select F9, and now it looks perfect. So my table of authorities looks perfect now, but it's not a perfect world, right? So let's pretend we thought the document was ready for final. You know, we've made our 20 copies. We have, we're getting ready to e-file it, whatever. And our attorney runs up and says, wait, I need to make some more revisions. So if that happens, and let's see if I can give you a good example here. So a couple things. Remember how I said, if you have the short cite on the same page as a long cite, right here, let me actually turn my show hide off, that it didn't mark this short citation because it's on the same page as a long cite. So if that happens, let's pretend that right here is where our attorney starts adding a whole bunch of text. Let me just add some text here. So that In re Baker's estate appears on a different page now from the long cite, and this has not been marked as a short cite. I need to now pick up this new page number because the short cite appears on a different page. So if that's the case, then I just need to mark it. Alt-Shift-I. And because this has already been marked, do you see down here in the short citation, it's saying, okay, is this short cite that you've selected, is it part of this long cite? And see how it's already identified the long cite? In re Baker's estate, 1963, 16 Cal 760. So at this point, I'm going to just say mark. I don't have to say mark all. I only want to mark this one instance. So I'm going to go ahead and say mark and close. And then right here, notice how it put in my short cite marking. So now I can go back up, update my table of authorities, and it will include this new page number. But let me give you another scenario. Let me find one that's going to be good. Chavez right here. Let me add some more text. Get rid of that paragraph mark. Okay, so I have Chavez here, and Chavez is probably marked as a short site there. It is. So let's say I've got id at, I don't know, I'm going to make up a page number here, 1, 2, 3. So this id, and again, I don't know the exact, I don't remember the exact definition, but this is referring to the citation that's listed above in the same paragraph. So in other words, this id is referring to Chavez. But if I take a look at this, if I turn my show hide off and I see how it's really paginating, so Chavez is on page 8, but this id is on page 9. I need to reference page 9, right? Because this id means that I'm talking about this case, Chavez. So with that being said, I need to mark id. I'm going to turn my show hide back on just so I can see. So what I would do here is I can select the id at 1, 2, 3. I'm going to do Alt-Shift-I. And this time it's saying, I don't know what you're talking about, right? It's not picking up the short side as meaning anything. So I'm going to leave in the selected text area id at 1, 2, 3. But down here in short citation, I'm going to tell it, oh, that id is referring to Chavez. So if I click on Chavez down here in short citation, it's showing me the long cite. Now I can say mark. And then see how it gave me a short cite field code and attached it to that id. So Chavez is now also going to reference this new page 9. And supras is kind of the same thing, right? If you have supra in a paragraph. So anyhow, that's how you deal with your ids, and that's how you would deal with your supras. So now I'm going to come back up to my table of authorities. It's now really ready for final. I'm going to turn my show hide off. I'm going to select my entire table of authorities. I'm going to hit F9, and it's going to update everything. So now see how Chavez is referencing page 8 and 9 in Ray Baker's estate, and I've got no more errors. It looks like a very clean table of authorities. So that's how you fix mistakes, right? I like to fix them properly, not just put a Band-Aid on them and leave them for the next person to basically deal with. I am just about done, so if you do want to start sending me some of your questions, I can get to those in just a couple of minutes. One other quick thing I wanted to bring up. Now, if this gets filed with the court, and then let's say a month or two later, your attorney says, hey, bring up that notice of motion that we filed in the Dickstein versus ABC Company matter. Do a file save as, because we're going to do the same type of motion for a whole different case. So you obviously would do a file save as, you would change all the party names, and if you keep the text in the document, because he says it's going to be very similar, you're just changing party names. Well, remember, you've got all these field codes sitting in here. So the first thing I would do after you do your save as is I would get rid of all of your field codes. That way, if you start cutting and pasting and moving things around, those field codes aren't still sitting somewhere in your document. So the best way to do that, you can do a find and replace. So in this document, I'm going to do Control F for find. I'm going to go to replace. I'm going to bring up the more button, and under replace, I'm going to look in special. So I want to find a field code right here, and I want to replace it with absolutely nothing. Leave this blank. And if you say replace all, oops, I didn't find it. Hold on, let me turn them on first. Turn my show hide on. Let's do it again. Control H. All right, So I've got my field, replace with nothing, replace all. There we go. All done. We've made 24 replacements. So it deleted all of my field codes. So now if I come up to my table of authorities, it's going to be empty there. So that's the quickest way to remove. I'm going to undo because I don't really want to delete all those in case somebody has some questions. All right, I have them back in there. So please start typing your questions. I'm going to get to them in 1 minute. I do just want to give you a very, very quick demo here. Since we were talking about table of authorities, I want to just show you a quick way, if you do have a template and macro package, how easily you can generate a table of contents and table of authorities. So I have a pleading up here. This document, I use heading styles for all of my headings. So for table of contents, they're going to generate based off the headings. This document has been marked for a table of authorities. So when our macros get installed on a client system, they get 3 new ribbons at the top. A general ribbon, which contains our templates and macros. Litigation ribbon, which contains macros that work with pleadings. And a formatting ribbon. Since this is a litigation function, I want to generate a table of contents and table of authorities. I'm going to put my cursor right at the very top of my heading memorandum of points and authorities. On my litigation ribbon, I have this add table of contents button. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to get a message just saying it's turning off my hidden text, which it needs to do. And then it's reminding me, make sure your cursor's in the proper place. I'm going to say yes. And it goes through this and it will actually type, it will create the new page for my table of contents and it will generate my table of contents. So the macro actually did that. And then once the table of contents is generated, I can come to my litigation ribbon, click on table of authorities and say insert table of authorities. And that will create my table of authorities page as well as generate my actual table of authorities. So again, templates and macros can make your document production so much quicker, save you valuable time. All right, so that was all I wanted to demo. I told you it would be super quick. All right, so now let's go see what questions I have. Okay, would you please remind us how to get certificate? Yes, Lilies, you need to send me an email, dbaker@afinety.com, and request an MCLE. And again, it's for California only. If you're an attorney, I need your bar number. All right. She also asked, this has been fantastic. Thank you, Lilies. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Do I have other classes to watch on demand? I do. If you go to Afinety.com and click on the Afinety University page, you'll see that there are some on-demand webinars that I've done in the past. Kim, I believe on page 6, a case references another case. We don't have to mark that one too. You know, Kim, I don't, again, there are books that exactly explain what needs to be marked and how you mark it. This class is not on what needs to be marked and how you type a citation, right? It's more how to actually mark a citation. So there's some of the books, 2 of the books out there. There's California Citation Guide, which is for marking citations for a superior court case, and then there's also Uniform Code of Citation. I don't remember the exact name, but it's commonly referred to as the Blue Book, right? And you can follow those formats when you are marking the citation for a district court pleading. So I would recommend that you do that. Where can I find the handout? Marissa, in the GoToWebinar panel that that's probably on the right side of your screen. One of those tabs, it should be right near the questions tab or chat. It says handouts. If you click on that tab, you can actually download the handout. All right, so Lori, without knowing the C codes, is it easier to just delete the code and remark it as a case instead of a rule or whatever? No, I mean, you're talking about categories. The handout I gave you actually will tell you the categories, and I can show you a way here to determine what your category numbers are. So I'm going to bring up my Alt-Shift-I. I'm going to bring up my Mark Citation dialog box. The order here, case is a category 1, statutes a 2, other authorities is category 3, rules is 4, treatise is 5, regulations is 6, so on down the road. So, and that's how it's defaulted in Microsoft. Now there is a way to customize your categories, but again, if you look at the order of the list in the categories, that should be your category number. So I would recommend, you don't need to unmark and remark. Now that you know how to read a field code and that you can edit a field code, you can fix your mistakes in that. And again, your default category numbers are going to be shown here. All right, any other questions? All right, well, I don't see anyone else typing, so I hope you guys enjoyed today's webinar. I hope it was helpful. You're welcome, Teresa. If any of you are not able to download the handout, send me a quick email and I'll send it out to you. I do have the rest of today off, as well as Friday, Monday, and Tuesday. So if I don't send you your certificate or the handout, just, you know, I promise to get to that when I come back to the office on Wednesday. Another question, to update the TOA, I right click and can update instead of F9. Is there a difference? Lori, there's not. It's the same thing. I'm more of a keyboard person, but in what she's saying here is, she's saying instead of selecting it and hitting F9, she probably selects it and then she right clicks and she says update field. Absolutely, it does the exact same thing as the F9 key that I use. What is your best resource for keyboard shortcuts? I think there's a way to print all keyboard shortcuts. I don't remember off the top of my head, but Lily's, you could actually Google that. You could Google Microsoft Word list of keyboard shortcuts, and it can probably tell you how to find that. Thank you, Lori. I'm glad you enjoyed today's webinar. So with that being said, I'm going to stop recording and I will end this webinar. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of the day.